Hello. So, doing some investigation, it turns out that Autumn has apparently seized my starter base by right of abandonment, which is inconvenient and unfortunate, but valid, and has the useful side benefit of making it significantly easier to get mail to her. I haven't gotten shot at since our last incident, something about hiding in the nether to acquire netherite. But upon returning to my base, I have found plenty more decorations that have been moved in, which need to be cleaned up. Starting with the berry bushes by my bed. I also have rows of sweet berry bushes, which are at least close enough to my industrial bunker that I'm just going to claim that as berry bush growing territory. Since I do accept my counterpart's pointed suggestion that my forest needs to be sharper and pointier. And I'm going to take my crown off while harvesting berries. The netherite armor can take it. Gold crowns, not so much. I love my butter armor, but it is not practical. Remember how I brought up that I have some cleaning up around here to do? I have found too many end crystals. That is my official measure. Too many end crystals lurking around my forest. Be gone. Some of these are lurking in some very creative placements. You see that? You see that? Can I even shoot it? Signs appear to point to, yes, I can. I had imagined that these might all go up together in a single, devastating crater, which would have been really unpleasant if I'd been mining out a tree and dug into one of these. Can you imagine how terrifying that would be? Can you imagine? I recently sent my spawn. I have to do this for science, guys. Okay, for science says that I don't accidentally break it by breaking the block it's in, which is good, but oof. Oof, oof, oof. Might not be effective at getting kills, but I will give this to Autumn. She is very good at intimidation. She's probably also fairly good at getting kills, it's just that's not really practical in fairy warfare now, is it? Okay. Okay, I deserved that one. It didn't hurt me, but I deserved it. And this getting me to go looking through and having to disarm the end crystals myself might almost be more effective than her hunting me through my forest. Because it's putting the onus of destruction on me. There wouldn't have to be craters in the landscape if I was just willing to accept her decree of end crystals. She's been using wither roses to send me a message. I feel like it's only appropriate that I use roses to send my reply. And actually, one rose is not enough. I need to do some proper counterplay with Lady Autumn. No destruction of her starter base, especially given that it's part of the cave crew stuff. Wouldn't want any collateral damage. But I definitely need to be leaving enough to send a message. So, upon returning to my base, I am greeted with 3 new discoveries. 1 There is apparently a conduit now in this area. 2. The missing dragon egg has been in front of my front door for a non-trivial portion of this time. And 3. Somebody has been messing with my base. This is where I would ask, who on earth would do such a thing? But I'm pretty sure it is blatantly obvious. Just as blatantly obvious as my leaving wither roses around was. It's good that spring is not completely defenseless in our war. After all, it wouldn't stop me. But there's less honor in picking on a poor defenseless elf. And she hasn't exactly done a reasonable job of fighting back up until now. She didn't even provide grass with them. Honestly, Spring, what are you doing? Well, let's just stash. Okay. Well, I would have rejected attempts at negotiation, but Well, it appears I have received a formal invitation. Very well, Spring. I cannot exactly refuse an invitation so delivered unto me. I feel like it's appropriate for me as the host to set up a spot for negotiations with my counterpart. Fairy rings tend to be sacred spaces, and I know that even if Autumn is grumpy with me, she will still respect the sanctity of that. Now, a traditional fairy ring is set up in mourning around a fallen tree, but we don't have any trees large enough, and also that would be a space both of us would be precluded from entering rather than a truce zone. So instead, I will set up a more artificial fairy ring in one of the blast craters Autumn has so helpfully left around my forest.
Well, hello, Spring. So what did you want to talk about? Please, state your grievance, Autumn. Are you sure I have one? I could simply have chosen to torment you. You have a reason. Or you will stop this nonsense immediately. Why? You've already fled before me once. On what grounds do you imagine you can bind me to stop? You cannot even petition the Queen of Frost and Falling Leaves about me, since neither of our courts have such queens. I can banish you. You can't. I can. It would be simple, even. Failing to pay my tithes and having L'Aurora's welcome be lost. You wouldn't. 3 consecutive hardcore worlds says I would, actually. I can start a new beginning immediately after leaving, but you need a world like this to even have a foothold. And there lies my grievance against you. I should be your equal, your opposite. And yet I'm relegated to watching Copper Age after everything's already done, or forgotten about completely as your ideas sputter out, but you never hand them over to me to finish. The way was open the entire time. Were you waiting for a signed invitation or something? In point of fact, yes. Though really, any welcome would have done, but that would have been too hard for you, wouldn't it? Almost as hard as me scraping together substance from the scraps you left behind. And the point at which I'm ready to welcome your help on a project, I've already spent too much of my energy to be able to even think of doing a summoning. And this is why we will never have a counterpart from the Summer Court. And this is why we will never have a counterpart in the Summer Court. That, and our preference for being our own lords and masters, and refusing to bow to the Fae Queens. So, will you be satisfied with me welcoming you to work alongside me this season? Given how begrudging your welcome was, no. And since I'm disappointed in your ability to threaten me, at a certain beginning you've been neglecting, I add the demand that you defeat a boss of the above. Uh-huh. Sure, you just want to see me get my ass kicked. I'm sorry, was I being subtle? Well, if you're going to insist on being part of my build team, Autumn, then this is my demand. I want you to prove that you can build something worthy. You know, like going and building a nether tunnel and properly vibrant foliage. You just want to avoid having to build last season's nether tunnel again. I know you. I'm sorry, was I being subtle? Well played, well played. Very well, I accept your deal. I accept our deal. So mote it be. What did you do, Autumn? Added my influence. Doesn't this wood look better already? Actually, yeah, it kind of does.